Refugees are humans torn apart in conflict, surviving only to live out the rest of their lives in a system that consumes them whole. They live, but they do not thrive. Refugees are stripped of their dignity, deprived of sustenance, and robbed of the secure lifestyle for which they tear themselves apart. War victims are immersed in an infestation of health problems caused by their lack of basic needs. Women give birth to the next generation in filth. Refugees are ambushed by their untreated symptoms of PTSD. The refugee camps are made out to be lifesavers, vital for the survival of war victims, yet survivors lose their lives. They die as they fail to quench their thirst. They die from the failures of global organizations to aid their malnourishment, as they spend the last of their lives waiting hours for food. They die from bodily harm, not by the war, by the police officers who raped them. They do not die as survivors. They do not die with dignity. They lose their life, their identity, and their humanity. They exist in an environment surrounded by people who do not understand them, their true pain. They do not die as the strong survivors of brutal conflict that arose within them. Rather, they disappear off the face of the planet, their stories to never be heard of.
The UNHCR's motives are true to what they say. There's no doubt about that. But the problem with not only them, but other organizations as well, is that their policies are ultimately dependent on the funding and permission of the states. Their policies have been criticized in the past, as they focus on the self-reliance of refugees and protecting rich countries from accepting unwanted refugees. This forces developing countries to take them in, when they may have a better understanding of the needs of refugees, but may not have the ample resources to support them. Local organizations are often overlooked by bigger, more familiar names. Clementine Maria, a strong Rwandan American woman, author, speaker, and public advocate, is also a victim of the Rwandan genocide and the inhumane conditions of several refugee camps, which she and her sister suffered through. In her memoir, The Girl Who Swelled Beads, the horrors of refugee camps are further reiterated. Refugees are forced to walk long distances, night or day, in order to get firewood to cook their borderline inedible food provided by the UNHCR. She was never one to ask for her name. She and her sister Claire were so traumatized by the refugee camps that stripped her dignity and identity away from them, that when she came across one of the few good camps, they were never able to fully trust them. Nothing good came from her experience with refugee camps, and there was nothing refugees could do to thrive. The only way to make a better life for themselves would be to escape, and so they did. There are many who criticize the efforts of bigger organizations for policies and actions that do not support the best interests of refugees or the camps which care for them. The UNHCR is known to sometimes produce misleading statistics and images that do not represent the whole community of refugees. The Trump administration utilized the COVID-19 pandemic to cut down resettlement quotas of refugees, as well as the number of asylum seekers from Central America. With bigger organizations, including the EU Border Agency, who sent refugees to their deaths by returning them to the Aegean and Mediterranean seas, their decisions lead us to question whether they have the best interests of refugees in their mind.
However, local organizations have the ability to provide more aid to camps in order to respond to the refugee crisis. For example, in Thailand's biggest refugee camp, the number of suicides increased from 1 to 14 to a staggering 96, all according to the International Organization for Migration. To respond to that, the Thai government provided refugees with counselors and psychiatrists while also setting up checkpoints to prevent drug trafficking throughout the camp. The factors providing the most support to refugees are things such as the fluency of the recipient community to the language of refugees, psychological needs, health conditions, as well as age, gender, and race. Another important factor which can further aid refugees is the ability of the organization to understand the background of the conflict and overall view and culture of those who are impacted by it. To best accommodate for those factors, we need to turn to a more local organization who knows the victims and can better aid them since they are more knowledgeable towards their specific circumstances.